As the federal health insurance system, Medicaid turns 60 years old today. Doctors are warning cuts could be leading to consequences in Missouri.
WGEM Capitol Bureau reporter Hannah Falcon spoke with physicians today about their thoughts for the future of affordable health care.
Outside a world-class health care center in St. Louis, doctors and Missourians gathered to celebrate Medicaid's 60th birthday.
For 60 years, it has played a vital role in America's social safety net.
But not without fear for its future.
We are watching or waiting with dread and anxiety as we wait and see what cuts might be coming.
We see so many people from out in the community that come from pretty far to come receive our services.
Infectious disease doctor Carissa Halesko sees patients who use Medicaid every day. But the biggest impact is in her own life.
Because of that, he is leading a healthy, normal life right now.
Halesko's adoptive son needed a NICU stay during the adoption process.
Medicaid helped cover those costs while the adoption was in process before he could go onto my insurance.
She and other doctors wait to see how the signing of President Trump's big beautiful bill will affect Medicaid coverage for Missourians. The bill requires Medicaid recipients to be working with some exemptions for disabled veterans and children. Missouri's senior Senator Josh Hawley voted in favor of the bill even after saying he would never vote for Medicaid cuts. Following the bill's passage, he introduced a bill he says will fund rural hospitals and prevent future cuts.
There's a lot of work to do on this. I think it's a mistake to cut Medicaid. I've always said that. I continue to believe it.
But when Halesko imagines what would have happened to her son without Medicaid,
it would have been devastating.
The Medicaid changes under the big beautiful bill go into effect December 2026. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates 10 million Americans will lose coverage. Reporting in St. Louis, I'm Hannah Falcon, WGEM News.